Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wareham Finance Committee meeting. We are beginning, tonight is Wednesday, March 1st, 6:30, room 27, Wareham Town Hall. We're starting our annual review of all the articles being submitted for the annual town meeting. And shortly after that, we'll be going through the special town meeting when the select board decides to open the warrant. And may I ask the clerk to call the roll, please?
Absolutely. We have all accounted for: Jody Smith, Tom Hannon, Tom Worthen, Dominic Camerano, Gerald Stefanski, Julie Moran, Norma Scoggin, myself, and Bernie Pittman.
Thank you. We have a full house tonight, and that means we have a quorum. Next thing on our agenda is moving on the acceptance of any minutes. We don't have any prepared right now. I did, matter of fact, speak to Kelly this morning, and she's on board, of course. Our contract runs through next October, and she's gonna pick up all the minutes that we've done thus far, and she'll turn them in. Next item on the agenda is B, is the committee for the Springtown meeting for Bayview Park. I have some paperwork we can pass out here prior. And presenting this evening is going to be Judy Whiteside, Chief of the Select Board. I should say Chairman of the Select Board, not Chief.
Chair.
Chair.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having me here this evening. Derek and I are not able to be in two places at once, and at the moment, the request is before the Conservation Commission across the parking lot. Our engineer is actually presenting for an NOI for the town for this project. What you see in front of you is something that you probably all of you have seen before. The town is asking for $1,080,000. The total cost is probably $1,524,000. We are hoping to and planning to renovate what is known as Bayview Park, which is in the center of Onset. In the center of the circle is the gazebo, okay? One of the things that is very important in our request is to make this park totally accessible to everybody. And tomorrow, I am meeting with somebody from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to explore how we provide access to all citizens of the town of Wareham, or whoever, because this beach is open to the world, actually. And I'm suspecting that what you see, it looks like a zigzag. I'm suspecting that that path may not be the most appropriate path because it takes much longer. There's no ability to drive a car up that one-way street and then probably have an unloading ramp for somebody who is mobility challenged. So we're guessing that the ramp to this park will end up on the pier side. I've given you a fairly substantive copy of everything that we have asked for, as well as the schematics, and if you can read this stuff, then you're a better man than I, don't get in. But this is what's being presented to the Concom tonight in terms of the levels and the schematics. We've had arborists out looking at the trees. Some of them need to go away. They're challenged. We also have some wonderful specimen trees in the park, and we will be working to save those specimen trees. 100 years ago, this park was a great place for all of the people in the community. And as you know, Onset was a summer community, summer camp for many, many years. We now find that this is sort of the last piece of regenerating and reinvigorating Onset Village. We have spent a lot of money on the band shell across the road, and there is more money planned to be spent there on an ongoing basis. We are working on traffic patterns as well through the road commissioners, because in the summertime, if any of you ever travel through Onset, it's fairly impossible. I don't go that way in the summertime. So I'm sorry, I forgot to identify myself. For the record, I'm Judith Whiteside. I'm the chair of the Select Board in the town of Wareham. I'm also a member of the Wareham Redevelopment Authority. Okay? So what the project really is concerned with is creating a space that is appropriate for all, that is available to all and usable by all. That is gonna take some money. And again, the schematics are here, and I gave you a copy of what we gave to the CPC committee as well. There is other funding that is going to be coming from other sources. I actually signed it yesterday, the CDBG grant funding will be providing $280,000, just slightly less. That is under our 23 and 24 18-month get from the CDBG grant. As you probably know, we are one of 9 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has routinely been given this money, community development block grants. The other money is going to be spent on affordable housing, as well as programs that help lower income people improve their property, perhaps a septic system or a new roof, that kind of thing. We also expect to have $85,000 worth of in-kind from the Municipal Maintenance Department. As you probably all know, Mr. Menard and his crew are able to leap tall buildings in a single bound and create wonderful places for us. And we use our own manpower, and it is manpower. All of the other information on this application documents that we are not in violation of any zoning bylaws, any other regulations, and we don't expect any income from this, of course. If you've been to the park, if you look at the top of the triangle, which is right next to Mark Anthony's across the way, the hand railing on that is really distressing. It sometimes pokes out. The sidewalk is not ADA compliant in any manner, shape, or form. And we also are planning to have that sidewalk made wider and made out of a material that is not liable to buckle and prevent access. So I think I probably can answer questions. I know you probably all have seen and heard about this. We've been talking about it for a couple of years.
Question, Dominic?
I do. Judy, could you tell me again, what is CDBG?
Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
We're one of, I think it's 9 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We got $825,000, but we got it twice because of the program going into hibernation.
So it's 1650?
Yeah. And we have 18 months to spend it.
Okay, so you're only looking for a small portion of that?
Yeah, but we've already submitted that paperwork, Dominic, Mr.
Okay.
Camerano.
Thank you.
We have,
Call me Dominic, that's fine. Okay, thank you. That's okay, thank you.
First named in this
okay.
committee.
The CDBG grant is managed through the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board. Many years of saying it one way, it's kind of hard to retrain me. And so we had public hearings on how to spend that money, and we listened to the public. In the past, we've been able to give money to boys and girls clubs. We will be giving some money to, well, as I said, to low-income housing people who may need to fix their roof or fix their whatever.
That's great.
So over a period of 18 months, we will have spent twice $1,825.
That's great, I'm just curious of what it meant.
Yep,
Thank
no,
you.
that's fine, thank you.
And Judy, may I call you
Yes.
Judy? Just a question, so it looks like total cost is $1.5 million, but you've got $440 coming from other funding, so that's kind of the net
Yes.
that you're looking at.
Yes.
And question I have is any of this working towards more parking or anything?
No,
Yeah.
sorry.
I knew the answer, I think, but I thought I would ask it.
No, it's appropriate to get it on the record. We did provide, municipal maintenance repaved and graded and planted planters on Heinz Field, which is across from Lopes Playground. And we hope at some time to be able to, and this is from Mr. Slavin and his wish list, to have jitney service or GATRA service from the parking lot that would go through the village from time to time. But it's not that bad a walk unless you're, unless you've had hip surgery recently.
By the way, that parking lot's come out great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's tremendous.
And
Yeah,
that's
it did,
that's a
exactly.
perfect example of what our municipal maintenance department can do.
Tremendous.
Yep.
Took an eyesore into a beautiful place.
Yep.
Agreed.
And just historically speaking, that was the location of the old casino. You
One of
remember
them.
that,
I
don't you?
remember.
Too bad.
One of the casinos,
One of them.
And it's also free parking, which is nice.
and it is
Yeah,
free parking.
exactly.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, will it remain free parking, or is
Oh,
that
no,
gonna
it's
have
free
kiosk, it's always gonna be free parking?
Yeah, the parking in Onset is run under something called the Onset Parking Program,
Right,
okay? And it's a receipts received account, so the money from the kiosks and meters, if we have them,
yeah,
it goes into the account and can pay for road signs, that kind of thing.
will they have kiosks at that, or it's
No,
gonna stay free?
not at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah. Not that I know of, let me
That's
answer
okay,
it that way.
that's
Yeah.
okay, right now, it's a
That's
no.
not the plan.
Dominic's been reading Facebook.
No, I don't even know how to get
Oh,
into
it's been
it, that's not
people-
me. I just know that the kiosks in Onset have been very profitable.
Yeah.
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 And
Good
Judy,
question,
one more
Judy.
question.
Yeah, just
And I apologize. Jamie, you want to comment?
simple. Is the design planning, I know that's by the end of January, did that finish up on time? And kind of leading to my overall question, is that an optimistic timeline, getting everything done, getting the bids out? I know how the system works and getting working next fall with supply issues and labor issues going on. I mean, that's a concern for everybody.
Yeah. A good question. This article will be on the spring and, the special spring town meeting.
Yeah.
Which means that the funding and the writing of RFPs or, informational will be able to go out the next day, hopefully. We have been working very closely with our, engineers, and they are, we can't line anything up because that would be against the law, but we know what kind of materials we need. The pathways will, again, be made probably of a cement of some sort, so that they don't buckle, because now the pavement is uneven and it's not appropriate for people with mobility issues. It will be a curve around so that people can get to the top of the hill. And this again is, at the moment, it's a plan, and there may be some changes to it because of the access to the gazebo, which is not available to the public at the moment. It's available to the public, but it's not available to all individuals. So we know that there may be some time frame issues, but again, our municipal maintenance department is pretty good at moving and grooving. How about that?
Not concerned about those guys.
I know,
Yeah.
That's for sure.
yeah.
And I think cement, I think pavers would just turn into a nightmare.
We can't do pavers,
Right.
they rock and they buckle,
Buckle and
we
everything,
can't do
I
it,
know,
yeah.
I-
This needs to be actually handicapped accessible or ADA compliant. It absolutely will be, we promise you that.
And Judy, it looks like there's some good sustainability aspects to this, and on behalf of our wonderful maintenance group, will be easier to maintain than what's currently there. So my
Yes.
hope is that it will be less man-hours than what they're having to do now to maintain that.
Right, there's some redesign of there's a little park at one corner, which I didn't honestly even know about because it's regularly overgrown. I know that the OBA regularly puts plantings out and that kind of thing, but the arborist that we had come told us which trees had to go because they were not in good shape. And so it is to be designed as a minimal ability, or, requiring of minimal maintenance.
Judy, one question, are they gonna address the irrigation when they, cause I didn't see it on
The
the
what?
list, the irrigation?
To be honest with you, I don't know if there's irrigation. Again, I am not sure I've never actually heard that there's irrigation going to be there.
There is, and what
Oh, yeah,
happened
it
to it,
is.
it got it got beaten up by different, holes got put into all the lines.
Yeah,
So it's, if you're gonna do all that work, you know, you need a way to preserve it, and that's why I was just, curious.
I don't know, again, they've filing for an NOI tonight and Concom, and to be honest with you, I don't remember anybody telling me it was gonna be re-sprinkled, if you will.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing it's, you know,
Yeah. I haven't seen any information in the paperwork I've had
yeah,
that referencing irrigation at all.
yeah.
I don't see any reference to it.
I don't remember seeing it, Tom.
yeah.
Being a public park would be difficult,
I was just gonna
just to get
say,
the timing right for it, you know?
being a public park and the sprinklers go on in the middle of somebody's early
Picnic, yeah.
evening wedding. Yeah, that could be difficult.
Make for a good movie.
Well, you could do it at night. When we were in Savannah, they had all the irrigation
3 in the
and
morning.
stuff.
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
in,
exactly.
You know, in the morning, so.
Judy, when we were doing the bathhouse, there was a critical issue that came up, and of course, it's right in the park. Will the statue have a good view of Wickett's Island?
We don't plan to move the statue, and we don't plan to build anything in front of her, correct?
Any other questions? Yes, Sherry?
Judy, back to the funding. The municipal funding of 80,000 and the 85,000 by the municipal maintenance, what fiscal year is this going to be done in?
It's probably a 1.5-year project, to be honest with you. So, because it's going into the special, we can start, you know, the next day, basically. So I'm guessing it's an 18-month window, I'm
So,
guessing.
so the municipal maintenance will come out like over a year
Over
and
a
a half,
period of
something
time,
like that?
yeah.
What about the 80,000 municipal funding? Where is that, what part is that coming out of?
Well, the design and permitting has already been done.
Yeah, okay,
That's what,
it's in there. I
yeah,
didn't get
that's,
to
this
read
is,
that
we
one.
paid for it, yeah.
Okay.
So that's, it's like the time frame is probably gonna miss it, it's gonna impact the summer at one point.
Probably.
Yeah.
But as, again, Mr. Menard, who would probably be the clerk of the works, although not really the clerk of the works, we try and work around our summer population because it doubles and we know that there's a whole lot of attractive things to do
Yeah,
in
lots of
Onset. So we hope not to impact the public access. On the other hand, public access will in fact be public access in this park. And that is something that we really must be,
Oh, yeah, it's treacherous going up and down those.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
walkways are
It's
really.
a mess,
yeah,
yeah.
it is.
And I think a nice mild winter could certainly help the timeline some, as far as the summer goes.
Well, if we have a
But you
winter
don't
like
know.
this one, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we have,
My daffodils are like this, forget it.
so if you have a good winter, you might.
We might luck out, yeah.
Do you have a comment, Norman? Anything else? Here being none? Good, thank you very much, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good luck with it. I mean, I think it's a great project.
Oh, I do too. Yes, you won.
Now, excuse me, the next item on our agenda is the Tremont Nail Factory office building, but I want to give someone, is there anyone who has a time frame that is here in the audience to doing presenting? Okay, we'll move on then to the Tremont Nail Factory. But I think I'm gonna skip it, Derek's not here, but Ken was gonna be the alternative.
She's up. Thank you, Derek.
Tremont Nail Factory. Unlike most of the properties in the town of Wareham, the Tremont Nail Factory actually falls under the aegis of the Select Board. The funding to acquire TNF was through CPC money. The request is for $200 and some odd thousand, and it's changed a couple of times, so I apologize, I don't have the application in front of me. It is to take and, to get rid of the paint on the office building, the white building, to take the sign down and preserve the sign, because it's the original sign for Tremont Nail Factory, and to possibly work on the windows. My personal opinion is that it's not enough money to get all of that done, but that's what the town is asking for.
But isn't there an organization that the redevelopment authority is trying to enter into agreement with
Bentley.
that would assume control of that building in some way?
The redevelopment authority has an agreement with a master planner developer, that is correct. And that company is interested in this building but doesn't have immediate plans for it. But we need to secure the building. It's as simple as that.
Define secure.
Well, the windows are rickety, they're old, and apparently there's mold and other issues with the building, and in order to combat that, we need to have it buttoned up.
But if we replace the windows, take care of the mold,
Mhm.
to what a benefit is to the town if the other organization is gonna assume control of it?
It's a lease only, which would be, from the town. It would be a long lease. And the benefit is preservation of an historic building in a complex which isn't a historic complex, actually on the National Register.
That's part of the National Register, that building,
The complex is,
for that building.
I believe so.
Dominic, you want?
Bernie, it can't be sold, I mean, it can only be leased because CPC
Yeah.
funding was used, so it can't be sold.
Well, I'm not thinking of selling, I'm thinking
Oh.
of the value of it. We're gonna invest in it,
Right.
and we're gonna turn that as an asset now. We've increased the value of it, and then we're turning it over to a third party.
As a lease, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's not gonna affect our asset or value by leasing it. Only makes it stronger.
You have a point, yes.
It improves the
Right.
ability to get a good
Mhm.
lease in place for the entire complex.
We own the building, so.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
We need to,
Used to talking to,
we need
Yes,
to
we own the
maintain
building.
it.
And we must, in fairness,
Gotta maintain it to get money for it.
maintain it to
That's
get
right.
money for it, yeah.
Yeah, I guess a question, I know Bentley Companies is the master developer
Correct.
who've been involved for a while.
Couple of,
Years.
3 years, 4 years, something like that, yeah.
Right. Any movement on they moving ahead with a long-term lease, or have we heard from those folks in a while?
Yes, we have heard from them, and one of the issues that had been brought up by not just the Bentley Company, but by others as well, is the condition of the Parker Mills Dam. And there are several sources of interest to to remove the dam. There've been actually 3 public hearings about whether the dam goes away in entirety, partially, or some other way. There is probably money available from the state as well as the feds to remove, this is a high hazard dam and has been qualified as a high hazard dam for something like 25 years. On the special, there's some articles that will be addressing the ownership of the dam so that we can proceed with applying for grants to remove the dam. WRA is also providing some funding, but I think it's 2 articles, don't hold me to that, because I believe, they're both on the special, which of course hasn't been opened, so there aren't any, Yes.
Do you have any sense of, my understanding is we remove the dam, this is getting a little bit afield, but it's pertinent, I think. We have to shore up some things upstream that are affected by removing the dam. Do you know if it affects the flooding in downtown Main Street, if we remove the dam?
The studies that I've seen with the rollout of, waves coming in and that kind of thing, I think you got the links to that, do not go as high up the river as that. What we have been told by the consultants who've done the study for removing the dam in total, which, by the way, is what this select board has endorsed, is total removal.
Right.
That will impact people upstream because they will have more land and less water, but it will improve riverine access, it will improve fisheries, it will improve all sorts of things. It will improve water quality downstream as well, because it'll be a flushing ocean. It will take years for the silt that's been built up behind the dam to flush out.
Anything else?
Sorry, question. The the lead paint removal,
Mhm.
is that our maintenance folks are doing, or is
No.
this an RFP?
There's an,
that we're putting-
yeah, well, we have a bid from a painting company, and obviously the building will have to be encapsulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So under
We are
federal and
aware-
state laws?
yes.
Even though it just says federal law?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Tom.
How many square feet inside the building?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
This is like putting lipstick on a pig, I'm telling you. The outside of the building needs work, but when you do that, the inside of the building has got mold. It's got all sorts of problems inside, and it's got no function. Nobody's signing up and saying, boy, I'd like to have my office there, or I'd like to do this to it. So I think we ought to look at it as a total bite of what we're gonna do to the building, not just piecemeal.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. The entire property, with the exception of the metal building, which is on a sublease, that building actually was leased to a company that was going to be growing marijuana, I believe.
Yes.
And they did an enormous amount of repair in that building. The master developers, the Bentley Company, have several iterations of their plans. Ultimately, that building will be used, as will the other, I don't remember the name of the building, the one that's right on the river that has a cement floor where we've held events, okay? So ultimately, Bentley hopes to develop the entire property for residential and commercial, in other words, mixed use. So you either have something that rots and falls down and is a hazard, or you preserve the history. And it's not a 40-year-old building that, it's, you know, it's
It
a
was owned by
historic.
the Sprague family at one point.
And the Historic Commission, Ms. Dunham has asked that we preserve all of the, you know, the plaques that are on the building, that we make sure that those are retained while the work is being done, and that they are mounted at some point in the future. So they will be stored by the town.
But once it's done, the building is no more usable than it is today. Because the inside of the building is a mess.
Is it a situation where there'll have to be a gut renovation of
I-
the inside?
To be honest with you, I've never been inside the building. I've just been outside of the building. There are several people who believe it's a total gut. I believe that historic restoration is important, and that if it is possible, I believe our master developers have that same idea.
But they're aware of the condition of the building.
Absolutely. They're businessmen, they're not in this because they love history. They're in it because they see a business opportunity to develop the property in, as I say, mixed use.
But it isn't going to advantage their plans one way or the other.
Means
What
that
we
they
do
don't
now.
have to secure the building. It means that the town will be presenting to them a property that is in better shape than it is today.
Not if it's not a usable building. It's just that you're fixing the outside of it.
Now, we repaired the roof several years ago, because it was leaking, and that continued, stimulated a lot of mold growth interior. Now we're gonna paint the exterior and put windows on. So now we have an envelope that is containing a lot of mold that we haven't, that hasn't got, I can't think of the word they used. But this paints the outside, but doesn't handle all the mold that's inside. That's gonna continue to grow.
That's
All we've
correct.
done is encapsulate it.
That's correct.
And not remediate it.
That seems to be missing. I mean, we're doing an awful lot of work to it, to paint it and all, but the interior still has mold in it. And if you allow that continue to grow,
Yeah, but-
it's gonna be deteriorating even further. And- Alex?
But you're stopping the mold, there's mold there now. But by doing this on the outside, you're working at being able to solve the mold inside easier. If you don't do the outside, you can't solve the inside because it's gonna continue.
Well, I agree,
So-
Dominic, but that
so we
solution
have
is
to
missing
take
here
the-
in this proposal.
I understand that, but basically, we have to take our first step forward to continue to go forward. Without this first step,
Oh, I agree.
where you gonna go? You
But
know,
I
you
suggest,
have to-
if you're gonna take step one,
You have to
better
take step one and
two.
take step two, exactly. And,
And you
you
can't
know, I
let it
mean,
sit there and.
we have so much money invested in it now. Like you said, Tom, you don't feel it's, you know, it's worth anything now, but we have so much into it now. To stop now would be a big mistake. We have to continue, and hopefully this company will work with us, we'll do our share, and then move on to make it a adequate asset. So that's how I feel about it.
I'm just coming from, I'm dealing with a lot of mold right now in another situation.
Yeah,
And it's
well, mold's
constant.
bad, I
Yeah,
understand.
it's constant, and we can't let it go until we're able to do
But you
restorative
still
work. We
have
have
to
to
take that first
maintain
step, yeah.
the issues.
The select board and the WRA are both aware of the mold issue. And we've had the same discussion among ourselves about why are we putting lipstick on a pig? Pigs can fly.
Maybe yours. Any other questions?
I have
Yes,
one,
ma'am.
who holds the historic preservation restriction?
There is none at the
There
moment.
isn't. So, can this project go forward without one?
Generally speaking, when the CPC provides funds, there is a requirement for either an historic restriction or an, what's the other one, David, help me out here? Conservation restriction, CR, a CR or an HR. Because the town owns the property, when it was originally purchased several years ago, that was not accomplished.
So that needs to be accomplished before this project can even,
No, the monies are generated or spent, and then, because putting one of those restrictions on takes several months and up to a year to get the paperwork in order. So you do the project with the caveat that you will be putting the restriction on, if you so choose.
Julie?
No, I just,
It was on your face.
yeah, I'm more just, I feel like, I understand, that we wanna try to preserve this. That's absolutely, since I think we bought it in 2014, acquired it. I just worry that next year, there's some other issue that we need to address. My assumption is with Bentley, we'll give them a long-term lease. In Massachusetts, you give them a long-term lease and it's tantamount to ownership. And which time, we would expect them to be doing some of this. I'm just worried that next year we'll have a similar issue, but there's really nothing we can do.
The proposed lease is a 30-30-30,
Yeah, so 90 years.
Yeah.
Which is
in,
ownership.
yes, right,
Yeah.
but it does have the outs on the 30s,
Yeah,
yep.
So,
But
anyway,
in order for somebody to invest in the property, they have to have that kind of a lease.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There should be nothing
Yeah,
other than
right,
that,
right.
for sure. So, anyway, I'm just concerned, roof, 2 years ago, now
Yes, by all means.
it's a challenge, for sure.
I mean, kind of like going on that, do we have a list of what they need done before they'll sign the lease? Do they have a,
The biggest issue, Mr. Hannon, is the question of the dam. That's their biggest issue, and to be honest with you, it's an issue that we, both the select board and the WRA, are working very hard to resolve. We do not want the risk that is there today.
so if that's the risk, and and I know, we've been paying real close attention to that one, could they enter into some type of contingency situation with that as soon as it's done? And then you could kind of get an idea of what the full scope of what the town has to invest in, and then they're gonna take over at that point. So it kind of caps what your exposure is.
Right. The dealing with the dam will fall on the town in some manner, shape, or form.
Sure.
The renovation and use of the other buildings will fall on the Bentley company. That's part of the way we've structured it. But again, we would like to encourage them to move forward.
And you're saying that this piece of it really shouldn't wait?
I,
We're
in my
requesting
opinion,
funds
that's
for it.
correct. I mean, we all know that we have very clear examples of buildings that have had absolutely nothing done to them for only maybe 10 years or 20 years, and they are an eyesore, and this is not on a, on a through pathway at the moment. But if we expect people to invest and reinvest in this community, we must be willing to put forth some effort and some good faith and some funds to encourage reinvestment.
Good for you.
Anything else, gentlemen, ladies? Being none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the the CPC fund reserves. This is a housekeeping issue primarily, because they are required by legislation to have a certain percentage of the monies that they receive allocated to certain departments. David, hello,
Hello,
how are you feeling?
I'm feeling much better, thank you.
Welcome back.
Good to see you all again, very
Excuse
good.
me, before David starts, Bernie, I apologize, I have to leave early, and I apologize to the board and anyone else.
All right, I don't take it personally.
Thank you, Don.
Personal business, David, I'd love to hear you talk.
Good,
Careful.
Good night, everybody.
good night.
Have a good night.
All right, as Bernie said, this is a housekeeping issue, because as a community that has community preservation funding, we're required by state law to allocate certain portions of those funds to various areas, and that's what this article does. We are expecting, and this is anticipation of, I believe it's $1.6 million in available funding for CPC. And so we're allocating $160,000. I'll go back a little bit. That 5% of it goes for administrative expenses. 10% will be allocated for open space reserves. 10% goes to historic preservation reserves. And another 10% goes to the affordable housing reserves. That's required by state law, and that's what this article will do. The article reads, I move that the town vote to reserve for future appropriations from Community Preservation Act funds year and fiscal year 23, estimated annual revenues for the following amount. $80,000 for administrative expenses, that's 5%. $160,000 in open space reserves, that's 10%. $160,000 for historic preservation reserves, and $160,000, 10% for affordable housing reserves.
Any questions?
There's really not any discretion on this, is there?
Pardon?
There's not really, we have no discretion on this.
It's part of
Really,
the act.
It has to be
Part of the
done,
act, it's something that we have to do, we do it annually.
And David, you have some funds that are obligated, that is to say, paying the portion of the bonds on certain issues.
Yes,
Is that money's already subtracted when you finally make this a portion? Because that's an obligation you have incurred.
no,
It's separate.
that's, this is an allocation into the reserves. It has nothing to do with what we've allocated to spend or are discussing to spend tonight.
But it's a set aside, so that isn't obligated, because you already made that obligation of those monies. And then there you have to allocate what you have into those respective accounts. Is that correct?
Right, yes.
And this only adds up to 35%.
Yes. There's a balance, unallocated funding, which can be used for any of these attributes, but we need to allocate a certain portion for each of these aspects.
That's why his committee is so popular.
One reason.
It's the only one with money.
That's the reason it was set up. It was set up so that there would be funding available for preservation of community. And as we've started to discuss this evening, some areas that it's going to be used, and we'll talk about other areas later on.
Any other questions?
All right,
Being none, nice to see you again, and hang around, hang
thank you
around.
very much.
Thanks, David.
Next item is the West Wareham School, presented by Schoolhouse Rocks LLC.
Hi there.
How do you do?
Good.
This will be an article appearing on the special town meeting, so we won't see it on our warrant for the annual. But we're just putting them all collect. Now, if you would introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Patricia McCardle. I am one of the owners of the school, and this is Veronica Debonese, who's the other owner. We are the proud winners of the auction in November of the West Wareham School. My son went there for kindergarten, and her children went there. We love this school dearly, and we've been. So the process of going for CPC funds was December 1st. We bought the school at the end of November, so we scurried to get some quotes to preserve the exterior. So we haven't even gotten through the interior yet. We're coming up with a plan. Housing seems to be the most appropriate for this building. But the exterior, I think, is just so iconic, is the word I love old buildings. And I would love to see for it to remain the same look on the exterior as you drive by. The town had purchased the land back in 1914. It was ultimately built by 1920. And it's just got beautiful woodwork inside. And so what we're seeking is for the exterior is the shingles. The shingles in the front have taken a real beating from the sun. They're curling, and actually you can just snap them off. And then the glass has taken a beating from rebellious teenagers who have broken a lot of them. So we need to reglaze all that glass, and ultimately the roof needs to be updated. So that is the plan for these funds that we're seeking.
Questions? Jody?
How much money are we looking for?
Well, I was seeking 99,000. They told me to keep it under 100, but they had approved 80,000.
Is it your plan, when you determine what you're going to do, to be funding the interior work yourselves, or will you be looking for the CDC?
That's the million-dollar question. So if we're doing a bigger project, and would there be like an affordable housing component to it, then we'd probably be going back to CPC later for part of the funding for the affordable housing component. And maybe even looking at some of the funds for historic inside, if there's something that we think we can preserve. But if it's a smaller project, it's all gonna be our funding, like, we're gonna have to get private funding.
Bank funding.
Yes.
What kind of smaller project are you talking about? What besides affordable housing are you considering?
So we've had a lot of people come in, including HGTV, who likes to preserve old buildings. And so we've had architects up in the attic, et cetera. I don't know how many people have been in it, but in the basement, it's really high ceilings of like 12 feet. And so the architect, just off the cuff, we don't have any final plans yet, thought within the footprint, without expanding it, that we could do anywhere like around, I mean, you could go as little as 4, but you could go up to maybe like 10 to 12. I think 10 to 12 might be pushing it if we were to stay within the footprint. And then we've had other people come and say, oh, keep within the footprint, and then maybe do some separate buildings on the lot, you know, through a LIP or through a 40B type of process.
But this would all be housing? We're
All
talking about
housing,
residential.
yes, correct.
All residential housing?
Residential, yeah, it's in a residential district, it's in your multi-MR30.
So you haven't determined if you're gonna do, it's gonna be a 40B development yet, but that's what
No.
you're
Yeah,
looking at?
the town is getting close to their 10%
Right.
threshold.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to take into consideration. Costs are something we have to take into consideration. As we all know, supply chains, construction costs, some of it, you're scratching your head, can't believe how high it's gotten. Ideally, when we first took this on, I think we were looking to do 4. If you've ever been in those classrooms, it makes so much sense. Each classroom becomes a unit, and then bump into some of that ag space, which has beautiful beams up there, it could be a really cool, like, housing condominium complex. A lot of the funding that we've looked into seems to gear towards rentals, so we had to consider that. So it's really gonna come down to cost, which way we go, but in any event, it's gonna be housing.
Tom?
You've known when you went into the building what restrictions you'd have on it if you bought it? Is there a restriction that you?
There's no restrictions on it at the moment. So obviously, if we were granted this money, then there would be historic restriction on the exterior.
But you knew what the building was, what it had, and everything else?
Yep.
And the town sold it because they wanted the money for it. Now you're coming back and ask the town for some of the money back to do something that we don't even know you're gonna do yet. I think.
I don't know if I'd say we're asking for the money back, but it's a different program that's just for this, is for preserving. So
But
wouldn't it be nice to always have this iconic building look the same from the exterior when you're driving by? It will always look that way. I think that's pretty special myself, but.
But that's not
Does
in
the
an
town do
area
that?
of, we're not talking about, we're going down Fifth Street in Savannah where every house is beautiful. I mean, we own a house on Main Street, in Wareham, and it's very random. It's not, we're not talking about an area that's historically, beautiful. I mean, it's a random area.
Like different looks of houses, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
It's better looking than the white building we have, are just gonna spend $300,000 on.
Oh.
Agreed.
Yeah. Do you have development experience? Because what I'm worried is we see you next year looking for additional funding when there's so many folks that come to this, group looking for funding. Do you have development experience?
I'm a real estate attorney. I am on the board of directors for Mass Housing, and I have done a few small projects. One of them that would probably be most comparable to this is the Grange Hall in Mattapoisett. That was a condo conversion, and there's 4 units in there, and the outside already had a restriction. We didn't have to put a restriction on it. It already couldn't have been changed on the exterior, and they're the coolest condos. So, and they were purchased right up, and the building is preserved, and it's beautiful.
And I own a plastering company, commercial plastering company, and several rentals in town that we have completely renovated, some of the houses that we've done. We're working with contractors all the time, and so.
Anything else, Jerry?
Did we get any handout as to the layout?
Renderings or anything like that?
Huh?
Renderings?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything.
So I guess before I could really understand it, I'd like to be able to see something in writing as to what you're gonna do this year, next year, what your intent is. We have nothing, we just, it's a vacuum for me.
Yeah. Well, it's tough getting some of the plans done on time, and we had nothing to start with. The town actually had no plans for this building, which I thought was interesting.
But you had to get figures, how, from
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah, and I
somehow.
have a copy of that application if that's helpful, because that had the original one. I could piecemeal it together, but it has the quotes attached to it for the shingling, the reglazing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you could send it to our
Yes.
chair.
Oh, yeah, sure, I can do that.
And in any event, the exterior wouldn't change regardless of what goes on the interior in terms of residential units, because once the exterior was renovated, we wouldn't be able to change that. So whatever it ends up being in the long term.
It'd be an interesting thing to see where you're going with it.
Definitely.
So would there be a historic preservation restriction on it
Correct.
If they got this money.
if they got the money?
Just on the
Correct.
outside?
Or maybe
Yeah.
exterior.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, you could do a 3D house on there if you wanted to right now.
A 3D house.
A printed house.
Yeah, he's talking about plans.
Oh, yes.
Anything else? No, that's all. Thank you very much, appreciate your
You're
time.
welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, Littleton Drive.
Great,
Heard that name before.
yes. Yeah. we were here before you last year. It may not have been myself, may have been my project manager. So you got me tonight, sorry.
Very good. And introduce yourself, if you would,
Great,
please.
I'm Charlie Adams, I'm from Penrose, and you can't call me Judy.
Can we call you Charlie?
You can call me Charlie. Yes, so I'm from Penrose, and we've been working on this for a while with the town. We're pretty excited that we're at the 5-yard line now to finish this off, and want to share with you kind of where we are and our last little bit of ask to get this over the finish line and have it be the kind of project that everyone can be really proud of here in Wareham. And there was some talk before about being close to the 10%. This is going to get you like right there, this project when it's complete. So you guys are really in spitting distance of getting over your 10%, which is good. Okay, you kind of all know the site. It's off of Swifts Beach Road. You guys probably know better than I, but my understanding this was a, am I blocking anybody, by the way? No, okay, I can see. This was a failed subdivision from the 70s, I believe, is what it was, and then the town got it back, and it sat there for a while. You can still see the trails of, or actually the sort of where the road was laid in for the subdivision. It's an all wooded site still. We're trying to keep that as much as we can as we move forward. That's the approximate site, but that's not actually how far we're building. We're trying to stay closer within, as close to that, the roadway as we can to maintain as much natural vegetation of the site as we can. So basically how we got here, the town put out an RFP through the Wareham Redevelopment Authority, which was pretty exciting to see that the town wanted to do something with the land. There were a couple of bidders. We were fortunate enough to be selected to move forward with the redevelopment authority in the town to build affordable housing. One of the things, and then, well, as you can see, it was put out in January. We were selected as the preferred developer. One of the things that was pretty cool is it was the first sort of COVID virtual selection that we'd ever done. Whenever we've gone to presentations, we've been doing this for a while, where it's always to a big group and you make a presentation, you get picked. We were picked virtually, which is pretty exciting. So it was a real compliment to the town and the WRA to like keep the process moving even with COVID and find a creative way to keep the project alive, which is great. We ended up getting, before we did that, one thing I wanted to mention is as we went through the RFP process, the original plan had a lot more family units and fewer senior units, and that's because sort of what the state priorities are. The redevelopment authority, speaking on behalf of the town, wanted to see a few more senior, so we actually were able to increase the number of seniors and decrease the number of family, keep basically the same number of units, and we got the okay from the state to do that, so that was a big win for everybody. So it was about, we have 40, you'll see we have 49 family units and 44 senior. It used to be like 36 and 54 or something, so it's much more in line. We went through the zoning process, and then we were fortunate to get our tax credits in February 2022, and now we're closing. We would have closed a lot earlier, but as you've heard a little bit tonight, and you'll hear from the other folks, construction costs and interest rates have been a real issue and have delayed a number of projects. We're really excited that we were able to find a bunch of, we worked really hard to find the resources to keep this thing together and to be able to deliver on what we promised, and we're going to be closing in the next couple of weeks. So a little bit about the layout. It really hasn't changed very much from when we originally laid it out. Our architects did a good job of figuring out the site and coming up with a plan. So you would enter at the top of the page. We have this nice long windy road. If I can walk over here, it would come down. The first thing you'd see would be the clubhouse, which is right in the middle, which will serve the family units, which are around the common village green, and then the senior building, which is right across the street, that'll have the seniors in it. So there will be a community room, management office, maintenance facility. We'll have a full-time manager, a full-time maintenance person on the site. They'll be housed there. There also is a small management office in the senior building as well, so that there'll be some of the time that the manager would come over and stay in the senior building as well. So this is a little bit what it will look like. That's the senior building at the top of the page. It's 3 stories. It's 44 units. The architects think have done a good job to sort of break up the massing so it doesn't look like one big monolithic box with the roof lines and stepping it back and forward. Right directly in front of it is that clubhouse that I mentioned. The back is where the In the center is where the community room will be, and so the doors will open up onto a back patio, which will be nice for this whole landscaped area that'll be in the center with walking paths, and you see this little colored area down here on the left, that's a playground. Around the building are 49 units in these nice little individual 4 or 5 unit buildings. Again, I think the architects did a nice job to break them up and make them look like small family homes. One of the things we always try to do with developments like this, which we were successful in doing in Eastham, the village at Nauset Green, is the front entries will be, there's no steps, so 0 entry. So it should appeal a lot to seniors as well, so the seniors wouldn't just be in the senior building, but some of the 1 and 2 bedroom units that are on the ground floor level would be very amenable. And that's actually what we've seen. We've seen a much higher population of seniors at that development than other developments for that reason. So just a quick summary, I think I mentioned it's 93 units. I talked about the mix, how we increase the senior, decrease the family, the 10 townhome style, basically a summary of what I've already said about the layout of the buildings. We want to talk a little bit about the community benefits that we've got here. So the idea when we do these communities, is not just for the residents, but it's also for the community at large. So for example, the community room and the clubhouse would be available to groups that want to use it. At Village of Nauset Green, we get the garden club that comes. We have yoga classes that meet there. So lots of people from the town use our community building. You just have to check with the manager, and if it's available, you can use it. We'll have a community garden, central walking paths throughout with the green. We'll have a playground that'll also be available to anybody that wants to come. I know this site does get walked about a bit, and so the idea is to try to keep and continue those paths and actually make them real paths now so that they're accessible. So we want to encourage people to come and still walk through the site. That happens at our other development. And what we've tried to do is keep the much wooded area around as we possibly can to keep that natural feel for the site. The big thing is trying to get new sidewalks throughout that will connect it all the way up to Swiss Beach Road and down. So that's a lot of sidewalk that you see coming down into the road.
How many acres is this total?
That is a good question.
16, I think.
17 something,
Yeah.
17 plus or minus.
Okay.
I think something like 40, don't quote me on that. It's actually the,
Says you're.
oh, 80, we have, I'm sorry, please.
No, you're right, it said 16, or someone's right, it
16,
said
yes.
16, but.
We would say about in one of our notes here is about 82% of the site though still remains as open space. So we're actually not developing, when you actually add up the footprints. Oh, and I also mentioned DHCD was willing to give a 70% preference for first year for Wareham residents. So it's going to be first year only. That's the best you can get. But you have to apply for it and ask for it. DHCD was willing to do that, so that's good news. Just another view aerial of the site. Sort of from the ground level, what it would look like with the buildings. Supposed to sort of blend in with the natural sort of wooded area, make it look like that it's in Wareham. We try to do that. Here's the back of the community building, which shows the back patio where people can gather as well. Here's a view of the senior building. Again, they've changed the colors, the materials, really to make it look like not a big monolithic building. We always put 2 elevators in every building like this, particularly so if one's down, there's still access to that. We also put it on a generator, so in the event of a storm, the elevators still work. We'll put a generator on the community building. That's actually happened in Eastham, where it was a huge storm, everybody lost power. They were all able to gather in the community room, and kids were in sleeping bags and doing their homework and stuff in the community room. Was pretty cool. So that happens a little bit more on the Cape, I think, than here, in terms of power being out. No, yeah? Oh, did I hit a nerve? Is that it? All right, we'll just skip right over that.
True.
I want to show this image. This is actually what these are photos of the community room in. I keep saying Eastham because that's a very similar concept to what we're doing. So that's why I keep repeating that over and over again. It's got a central walking theme with around the 2 villages. So the clubhouse would be very similar to this. None of our things are exactly alike, but they have sort of all the same elements. So you get something that would look generally like this in terms of how it feels. We put a kitchen. There's basically kind of a mini kitchen, if you will, with a warming stove and everything, so that people can have events there, birthday parties, and again, people can come in from the public to use those rooms as well, and we don't charge for that. These are just I wanted to find some images of this. Is actually just from Hartford, but our units, we kind of have design standards to make our units, you know, that we adhere to, for functionality, for maintenance, for the way they should appear aesthetically. And so we just pulled up a couple of images of something we're recently completing in Hartford to give you a sense of what inside the units would look like in terms of the cabinets. Yes,
Do you put any units aside for people with disabilities?
yes,
Wider doorways and things
Yes.
like that?
yes. 5% of all units are fully accessible, and 2% are sensory impaired. And if you have a development that has a 1, 2, and a 3, has you know, whatever number of bedrooms you have, 1, 2, 3s, or even 4s, we don't have any 4s, but we have 1s, 2s, and 3s, each one of those types of units would have to be accessible, right? So there will be at least one bedroom, at least one 2-bedroom, at least one 3-bedroom that are accessible, and then the total will be 5% for all the units. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just think, you know, in this day and age, it seems to be a big demand, people with disabilities and stuff, for whatever reason. I'm not saying good or bad, but, you know, besides the doorways in the bathroom, sometimes the kitchens need to be retrofitted and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something you do, or you just?
So, yeah, so first of all, that's one of the things I mentioned, at least, so all of the ground floor units will we would call visitable. So someone who is mobility impaired can go visit any of the ground floor units, so the doors will be wide enough to accommodate that. There's also reasonable accommodations if people are in their unit and they need grab bars in the bathroom. Whenever we build, we put blocking behind the bath, so that if someone does need a grab bar, if we don't have it already, they can easily be added. We can do different types of things for reasonable accommodation, so there are different ways to do that.
And presumably all of the senior units are accessible, is that right?
Yes, all the senior units are I wouldn't, they would all be visitable. They wouldn't necessarily all be, they're not all handicap accessible. I want to be clear that they're not 100% handicap accessible.
In this
So
type
Some
of,
of them would be.
Well, so, yeah, at least 5%. Well, so each, so again, so it's not, we sort of treat them as two separate projects. There's two sort of separate financing stacks. So the family development has to have 5% of its units, and the senior development has to have 5% of its units. Yes.
in this type of project, though, because all the units have to be accessible in the context of the doors, allowing wheelchairs to go through them. So
Correct.
it doesn't make any difference what specifically the unit is,
The entry doors, you
All
can't
the
say that
doors
necessarily
are-
all,
are-
you can't say that the,
wheelchair
I
accessible.
couldn't say that like the bathrooms have the turning radius in all of those.
No, but they have a door that's
That's right.
accessible, yeah.
That's right, yes.
Question about
Yes, please.
the community room and access to the walking path. Is there separate parking so townspeople are not interfering with, and I don't know if there's assigned parking for the rental units versus a parking lot for the community room, so
Yeah,
there's no disagreements about where
Yeah.
people are parking.
so generally we found, I think here we got approved for a 1.5 ratio, I think.
Oh, okay.
Not sure. That's plenty for a development like this. And usually what we find is, we have a full-time manager, and we'll figure it out as we go. So we usually don't come out of the gate saying everybody's got assigned seat spaces and all that. We only will do that if we sort of need to, if there's a lot more people that have cars than we thought, and they need to start to be assigned them, and, we need to do that. So they'll implement those if necessary.
Other question, sorry.
No, please. this
Is
why
there
we're here.
federal funding associated with this project such that the leases may have some provisions that, unusual, or different provisions than what we might have in state? So I guess that's my question.
You're actually asking about the lease?
Yeah, about the lease, the leases the rental of the units. Is there any, if it's federal funding, are there
Yeah.
anything different than a standard, I'm a real estate attorney,
Yeah.
Massachusetts lease that,
Yeah, so I'm not an expert, yes, so the answer is yes, but I want to caveat, I'm not an expert in leases. But what I do know is everything is very heavily regulated. There's always addendums to all these leases.
right,
So, the lease has to be, some of the things that are most important, right? For a property that's using low-income housing tax credit, it has to be a minimum 6-month lease. We do 1-year leases.
okay,
That are automatically renewed, but people have to certify their income and their
Okay.
verification. No subletting, it's not
Okay.
gonna be a B&B, any of that stuff, that's all prohibited. We'll let people have pets generally, that's something we do, because we think it's good and important, small ones. I can't think of what else that there would be.
okay. I was just interested, because sometimes, some of the programs in the feds are, can be a challenge. So,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, if there are particular, I can get back to the particular things you
I
think that might be,
that's,
okay.
that's fine,
Okay.
thank you.
Can you just maybe give us a very brief idea of what the income restrictions are for these, or will be for these units?
Yes, so, the senior ones are, it's 100% what we call 100 affordable, and that, by 60% of area median income or below. That's what qualifies for the tax credits. And then on the family side, we've got, I wanna say 10, I think 10 workforce, and the rest are below 60% of area median income. And some of those, on both the senior and the family, some are actually at 30% of AMI as well, so there's 60% and 30% units. And a lot of that is dictated by the state funding sources, so you have to have a certain percentage below 30, and then to qualify for the credits, it has to be below 60, otherwise you can't qualify for the credit.
I'm sorry, the 50-year affordable D restriction is really like a 40B restriction,
50
which
year,
is,
it's a 50-year.
yeah, 50-year. So if you sell, you have to write a first refusal or, I don't know.
Yeah, so we don't usually sell these things, that's not
Right.
how they're set up. In
But
fact, the
that's
tax
what it would
credits, yeah, the
relate
tax credits
to,
have to
right?
be delivered over a 15-year period of time.
Right.
So we're on the hook for 15 years to make sure that the investor gets all their credits.
Mhm.
So usually what happens though is at the end of the 15 years, we call it a re-syndication event, because that's when you can go back and get credits. That's usually the time when, you know, the property needs a little TLC, it probably needs new kitchens and baths and those things. So that gives you the opportunity at that point to it's basically to refinance it, but you re-syndicate, you will get more credits.
But what I meant is the 50-year affordable D restriction, and what that says is for 50 years, you have to keep these levels, correct?
That's right, yeah, so
Yes.
whether, you know, whether we're doing it or the
Whatever
code is
your
running, whoever
income
takes it
limits
over,
are,
they have to
cost of
keep
living
it
changes.
for 50 years.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
okay.
right. And this is, yeah, that's right.
So AMI, which what, average median income?
Area median income.
Area, where's the database for that, or?
So that's set for us, that's, we don't, you know, that's set for by the state, by the feds. So
Is it county specific, or how?
it's, you're gonna start to get, I'm gonna start to get on my side of my pay grade. It's basically set sort of at the countywide level, or what they call the metropolitan statistical area, the MSA. I think technically Wareham is part of the Boston, MSA. So, that's just set for us, we have no say over that.
Really high, yeah.
Okay, we're rounding the corner here. So I want to give you just a little sense about some of the other deals we've done and the cost of them and relative to CPA funds. And one of the things we've been really successful with, actually on the Cape, on this one, and that we did it again on Orleans, is to get funds from additional towns. And so on this, when we did this project, it was 65 units, 23 million, as you can see. Eastham put in 1.5, and then we actually got Orleans and Wellfleet to contribute as well, so that was pretty good. So on that one, you know, it was a $23 million project, and we had CPA money equal to 7.6% of the development cost. This one's really incredible in terms of Orleans. Not just that Orleans put in $2 million, but 6 surrounding towns were willing to put in money as well. Actually, that needs to be updated. Wellfleet is not on there, and they actually put in some money as well. So what is that? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 towns put in money for this. And so that actually represented a little more expensive. This deal's going to close in July, so it's a $35 million deal, 62 units. You can see how the costs have really gone up over the last couple of years. So that represented 7%. And then on this one, just to give you a sense, we're at now, for this one, for 93 units, remember it's more units, 93, we're at almost 46 million, and we're looking just for 300,000, and so it's just actually just a small percentage of the overall cost. One thing I thought would be useful is to get a sense of this, to sort of, you know, show kind of the bang for the buck that the town's getting in terms of this. When we came and showed you this slide a year ago, that $45 million number was 40 million. So, you know, that gives you a sense of how things have gone. It's the construction costs, but it's also the interest rates. And so the interest rates have a double, people kind of forget about the interest rates. There's a double effect of the interest rates. Not just does it decrease the first mortgage, but you have all this construction loan interest. So in some transactions on a deal like this, maybe for the family, we might have been carrying $300,000 of interest. We're probably up around $800,000 of interest, because it's a, 16-month construction period, and that stuff adds up really fast. We did a quick analysis, so this shows you sort of how much is private equity, how much is first mortgage, how much is soft money, how much of our developer fee we're deferring, and then, the contribution from Wareham. One of the things, as a finance committee, you'd be interested in is if you look at that first mortgage, that's 18%. If we had, using the rates that we had a year ago or 2 years ago when we started this, we'd be able to increase that 8.5 by $2.2 million. So it would have gone up to 23% of the overall cost. That just shows you what an incredible impact the interest rates have had on the cost and creating huge gaps for everybody. Last time we came to you though, we were actually asking for $800,000. And now we're only at $300,000, and one of the reasons why is because we did a good job of figuring out some other sources, including, we got a Federal Home Loan Bank grant of $650,000, so essentially that replaced, if you do the math, it's almost equivalent to the dropping it from $800,000 to $300,000. So essentially that's what we were able to do to get that, and so now we're looking for those funds there. That's my story. Questions?
Obviously, it's asked for.
Quick question,
Yes.
what's your timeline if everything goes
Yeah.
according to the master plan here?
Yeah, so we're hoping you're gonna see some activity next week, actually, to start, and then we're gonna actually have an official closing in the middle of March.
When you say you start construction,
Yeah,
Side
Yeah.
work?
do some site work, right. So, we can close, really that $300,000 is to help do some of those kind of community benefits things that we need, right? So, we're trying to hold this thing together and not have to value out VE anymore of that kind of stuff. So like the concrete, the sidewalks we want to do, and the bike paths and the playground and all those things, that's what, that $300,000 is gonna help us do, so we don't have to cut those things out of the project as we go forward. So we have enough money to get the project started, and, that money will help us make it really pop. So that's why we're looking for that.
when might you see someone move in?
So.
Yes, obviously I'm not gonna hold you to it.
When you-
Yeah, no, I can, it's a good question. So I think the construction schedule on the family will actually be 20 months. I think the construction schedule for the senior is more like 15. It usually takes us about 6 months to get each fully leased. So on the family, we'd be talking about, 2 years from now, you'd see first people moving in. You'd see the seniors move in a little bit earlier than that. And actually, the family, I take that back, the family might come on a little bit earlier because they'll be able to do it in pieces, and we can start to try to move people in.
But right now, you don't see any changes, any elimination of the community building or any of that? Right now, this is what you expect to?
Yeah, we want to eliminate the community building. Yeah, it's more of those little things, how many trees can we plant? How much do we have to do asphalt instead of concrete sidewalks? Do we have to cut back the number of sidewalks? Those are the kinds of things that we would need to do.
Hopefully not.
Anything else?
With your money, we can do it.
This strikes me as a great use of our money. Because it is providing a public benefit if you're truly making these facilities available to the rest of the town, and we really need the affordable housing.
Great, I'm glad.
How many affordable units?
93.
Well, there's 93 total. I would say they're all affordable because they're either at 60% of AMI or they're what we call workforce, which is up to 110 or 120% of AMI. So, you could either look at it, all but 10 are below 60, but I would count those 10 as affordable as well because they're not market, they're workforce, and those are restricted as well. They're not unrestricted. Mass housing, mass housing as a workforce housing program.
In your project so far, what percentage of them come in with students, with kids?
Well, they're family development, so there will be some kids living here.
I know,
Yeah,
but what is
The
that?
numbers, well, I can give you a study. The numbers are always lower than everybody thinks, right? So, Rutgers University did a study a number of years ago where they actually calculated, the number of bedrooms, the number of kids in these. I couldn't quote that for you, unfortunately. I could try to get that if that's of interest, but, actually, we're not supposed to talk about kids, I think, with the 40B stuff, but, now that I say that, so maybe I can't do that. But it's always less than you think, and then the other thing to keep in mind is that, you know, these aren't gonna be necessarily I always like to think that if you have X number of kids, half of them are new to the community and half of them are already in the community. Because a lot of people are doubling up and tripling up in places, and this is giving them an actual place to live. So I know there's always questions about stress on the school system, but it's always less number of kids than you think, and they're not all new kids. And you also have 12 grades, right? So they're gonna be distributed throughout 12 different grades. So, you know, you're gonna get like 1 or 2 kids per, at best, you know, across all 12 grades.
It's $13,000 to $14,000 a year, though, per kid.
Well, we're paying taxes too, so.
Anything else? Charlie, thank you very much, and could you please send us a copy of your PowerPoint?
Of course, yeah.
Either if you have Norma's or mine.
I have your
If
email
you send
address.
to
I'll
me,
send
I'll
to
get
you.
it
Yeah.
Yes,
distributed.
please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And next one we have is, it's actually Article 12 on our final, for the Woodland Cove, Phase 2.
Oh, here, you guys want to sit?
Thanks,
Oh, okay.
By the way, Tom, I think it's, the national average is 2.8 children per family.
With a 3-bedroom?
I mean, no, just a
But there
family.
was- but there was
It's, on the
seniors.
average,
I
it's
mean,
2.8
This is a
children.
mix of different ages and everything else. I was
Yes.
wondering what a typical. And it's
Oh, you
going
plugged in
down.
and got it online real quick.
And it's
I
going
know,
down.
trying to be
Been doing
efficient.
this before, huh?
She has. If I were in charge, it would take a lot longer.
Let's see, how do we start the slideshow? Okay.
Hopefully he stole a lot of your thunder.
If you would introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. My name is Sarah Kaiser, and I'm the Development Project Manager with Dakota.
And I'm Penn Lindsay, I'm the Vice President of Acquisitions and Development with Dakota.
So we are here tonight to discuss Woodland Cove Phase 2. It's located at 3102 Cranberry Highway. So for the project overview, it is a 3-phase project consisting of 150 units total with 5 residential buildings and 1 community building. Phase 1 has 63 units, as does Phase 2, and Phase 3 has 24 units. This project as a whole will have 181 complementary parking spots. And both Phase 1 and Phase 2 will be passive house.
What does that mean, passive?
What's passive house?
So it's a, passive house design is different building practices that make a very highly energy efficient building. It's highly insulated and recirculates the heat
It's a-
ventilation to basically so you don't give off emissions and as energy efficient as possible.
It's more environmentally friendly.
Yes,
That's right. It's an energy certification
yeah,
program for the residential units.
yeah. So for Phase 2, it is 63 units. So the 2 buildings are buildings A and B, and it's made up of 11 one-bedrooms, 45 two-bedrooms, and 7 three-bedrooms. It'll also have supportive services, so we'll have a company come in and they will cater to having several units be for homeless and residents that need, mental support. So that'll be, yeah, and so then also, so today we currently have a funding gap of $875,000. But we are only seeking 400,000 from the board. So for affordability, phase 2 has 30% AMI units, and 8 of those will have project-based vouchers, and 1 Massachusetts rental voucher program unit as well. And then we'll also have 47 60% AMI units and 7 workforce housing units. Phase 1 will be very similar, except they have 8 30% units and 48 60% units. And phase 3 will be 24 units of just workforce housing. So some of the amenities that we will have are for the community. We have off-street parking. The property is close to restaurants, shops, and other services. And there will be a community building. It's going to be built as part of phase 1, but it will serve all 3 phases. And that will have a fitness center, package room, on-site management office, community room, and an outdoor playground. And for the building and in-unit amenities, there will be a laundry room in each floor, elevators in the buildings, and in-unit there'll be luxury vinyl plank flooring and Energy Star appliances.
Gas stoves, you putting gas stoves in?
No. So this just shows where our site is. So it's right off of Cranberry Highway and Red Brook Road.
What has been there before in that spot?
So for phase 2, the Starlight Motel was there, but we have since demoed it, and it's just vacant land.
How many acres is it?
It's just under 9 acres. I think it's 8.6.
Okay.
So for the phasing, so the red buildings, those are phase 1, and phase 2 is blue, and phase 3 is green. However, we're kind of building them out of order. So phase 1, we started construction first. In phase 3, we actually started second, but we still call that phase 3, even though it was built in the second phase. So currently, construction for phase 1 is scheduled to be completed in August of this year, and phase 3 shortly thereafter, and then phase 2 should be completed the end of this year, beginning of 2024. So for the community need, we did commission a market study, and the market study showed that over 42% of Wareham's renters are currently rent burdened. And Wareham Housing Authority currently has a 2 to 3 year long wait list. And also all of the existing affordable housing in the market area is fully occupied, with a wait list of at least 6 months. So there definitely is a need, and just to be able to relieve the cost of rent for a lot of Wareham's residents. So Woodland Cove will be able to charge rents that are 78 to 101% less than the market rents for our 60% AMI units. So that visual down at the bottom just shows like where we got those numbers for our 2 and 3 bedrooms. And then we will also have a 50-year extended affordability commitment. And we do offer the supportive services and the passive house as well.
Did you say that there's a voucher program? Is it Section 8? The Massachusetts equivalent of Section 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
For all units, or?
No, so there will be 8 project-based vouchers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that for just phase 2 or for the whole thing?
So phase 2 has 8, as does phase 1.
Okay.
So this is our financing. So we have our perm loan through Mass Housing, and then we also have funds from Home, HTF, HSF, and then the workforce housing. And then we put the request in for the 400,000 of CPC funds. And we've already spoken to DHCD, and they've agreed to split that $875,000 deficit that we have with the town if it's agreed. So they'd be covering $475,000.
Is that contingent on us
Just-
giving you the 400,000?
Just to clarify, that has not been agreed, but that is the proposal that we've made. We originally went to DHCD for the additional funding. We'll get into a little bit about this gap in funding in phase 2 that we're dealing with, but you know, we do have this 875,000, which is the 400 from the CPA grant that we're applying for, and then the 475 we're asking for from DHCD.
So are you saying without this money, this phase wouldn't move forward?
What we're saying is that without this money, we have a funding gap. We've actually already started construction, and we're working on
Phase 2.
we're working on all 3 phases right now. Phase 2 is the furthest is the furthest behind in terms of the schedule, and we don't have the full amount of funds yet to complete the phase.
Is the funding complete for the other 2 phases?
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. And so then also for additional funds, we do have the energy rebates coming in for the passive house, and then we are deferring part of the developer fee as well. So Charlie actually touched upon a lot of where our funding gap came from with the increased interest rates. So right after we closed, our interest rates did increase up 0.65%, so then that resulted in about $200,000 in unanticipated costs. And then our project is fully bought out, and there are currently construction cost overruns of approximately $682,000. And then for construction, we were delayed approximately 4 months, and that also attributed to some unanticipated winter condition costs as well.
What was the reason for that delay?
So our building permit was was held out. And are there any questions?
Just from a person that drives by, it looks like the buildings are growing up, at least the blue ones, are going up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So kind of the same questions, are they handicapped accessible and all that? You can say yes, kind of the same thing that was said before.
Yeah, so phase 2 will have 10 accessible units, so 8 of them will be mobility and 2 will be sensory units.
And when do you feel, are you pre-leasing at this point, or is it a little bit too early for the?
Yeah, we haven't started that process
Okay.
yet.
And what's your thought on first occupancy of
Well, the first phase,
phase?
the first phase should be completed in August, so probably by the end of the year,
Well-
we'll start leasing.
Okay.
Well, actually, so the phase would be completed in August, and we'd be expecting to
Yeah.
move people
Yeah.
in to that
Shortly
phase.
thereafter,
Right.
yes, okay. Good.
As soon as we got our occupancy permits, and we would start pre-leasing
Okay.
closer to the time
Okay.
of completion.
Yeah. I think we generally start like 3 months before completion.
Is there any priority for Wareham residents on this building or this project?
I need to double check on that, but I do believe we do have a preference for Wareham residents. for the initial lease up. But I will get back to you to confirm.
And are these one-year leases that year,
Yes.
minimum 1 year? Okay.
Yep.
Are you doing any remediation on the intersection just below you?
I'm sorry, any,
Are you doing anything on, to upgrade the intersection below you? On, Cranberry Highway?
no.
Okay.
Don't believe so.
Anything else? Nope, and again, could you please, provide us with your PowerPoint?
Yep,
You present it?
absolutely.
And you can send it to Nora. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
you.
you all,
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Next item on our agenda is Article 13, excuse me, on our regular warrant as they determined last night, which is the Sawyer Conservation Area. Nancy and Bob. They're from the Wareham Land Trust. How are you this evening?
Well,
How are you?
I am well, thank you. And we have some updated information for you.
They have to have some kind of a comment on the other one, I didn't ask.
Um, Wanna give it a whirl, or do you want me to start?
Whatever you'd like me to.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead, go ahead.
It's an obligation, yeah. Requirement. The floor is yours. When you introduce yourselves, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McHale. I'm the treasurer of the Wareham Land Trust.
I'm Bob Gleason, I'm Vice President and Chairman of the Acquisitions Committee.
Bob and I have been tag teaming this project, so our executive director has been out on maternity leave, so hopefully she will be back in full swing for everything. She came back to the office Monday, so that's why Bob and I are here representing
I
us.
don't think the last time she was before us, she was married. Was she? How long she been married? This is, I'm sorry. I mean,
We digress, but she actually got married the week before she started with us.
oh, wonderful.
Okay. Anyway, everything is good. This project is to preserve a small parcel of land that is important habitat for the coastal pine barrens. It is a mixture of uplands and wetlands. And to orient you, it is in East Wareham. It is up off of Red Brook Road. Most of you will know where the Wareham Onset Water District fields are. This abuts that property. It also abuts the Lyman Reserve, which is Red Brook Road, for which Red Brook road is named, runs through that whole area. The property was purchased a number of years ago by Mr. Sawyer's father because I like the woods, period, end report. He understood the intrinsic value of saving property that is important, wellhead protection over your aquifer, as well as habitat protection in general. I think you may or may not have been able to read some of the information about it. It's natural heritage endangered species, rare and estimated habitat priority. So those are all of the important things there. They're part of the riparian buffer to Red Brook Road, Red Brook itself. This project will protect drinking water by increasing the amount of protected forest lands and wetlands. It provides habitat for endangered species. It will also provide more recreational opportunities in that, when it comes to fruition, we'll be able to increase access to the Lyman Reserve. There's been a large portion of their property up near Route 25 that they haven't been able to access because it's been private property. So we're in the process right now of working with the trustees, with the Onset Water District, to create a trail system, a network that'll be, at the very beginning, about 5.4 acres, or 5.4 acres, 5.4 miles of new trails that will be accessible and marked. They'll be accessible to the general public, and the parking lot area for that will be actually on the Lyman Reserve, which is right on the Bourne line.
As you may see on the maps as well, it does abut a current Wareham Land Trust property. So it adds to current, it would hopefully add to the current Wareham Land Trust property as well.
Yes, the Sawyer project property is, on 3 sides, has conserved land around it already, between the Onset Water District, the trustees, and the Wareham Land Trust. So,
Do you have an idea of how many acres now with your property as well as the abutting properties that you reserve?
because the Onset Water District properties are so numerous, I haven't gone there to add them all up. But it literally is hundreds of acres. But most of that is the Onset Water District. We have letters of support from the Water District, from the Onset Fire District Prudential Committee, from the Buzzards Bay Coalition, from the trustees, from the Wareham Conservation Commission, and from the Wareham Department of Natural Resources, from Gary Buckminster. So I would entertain any questions that you might have, or we would entertain those questions.
So the actual purchase price for the piece of land is $30,000.
The actual purchase price is $30,000. Yeah.
Which is considerably below what we've had as a.
No, I'm not disputing, I'm just making sure I'm reading things right, that's all, I'm not questioning it.
Yeah,
Just-
no, Mr. Sawyer is in his 80s, and he has made the conscious decision that his family lives elsewhere, they're not going to be able to use it, and he would like to see it conserved for those.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very generous.
it is.
Mm.
I have a question for Bob. What's the bet on the first osprey in March?
You can have a pool.
Call it March 20th.
20?
Yes.
Okay.
Earlier than most years, given the,
Yeah, that's what it's been for a bunch of
yeah,
years.
yeah, sure.
But not because
At our-
it's
at our-
been milder, you know.
Yes.
It's been.
Maybe earlier. Better know that though, where they are.
Yeah.
They'll arrive when they arrive.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the questions that you folks have asked historically, I did include in there, which is what the tax bill has been. Because it's undevelopable, it's been like $240 a year. So it's not an impact, a big impact to the town. Okay?
Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Hey, no, thank you very much.
Thank you very
I
much.
apologize for my
You're
rather
very welcome.
clumsy question at the beginning.
Okay. It's appreciated, and thank you very much for all you do for the town.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, is Article 14, which is the depot at Onset train station.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I am Dawn Gomes. This is George Galkinas, my architect, and this is Angela Green, operations manager.
Louder.
Louder. Did you hear me?
Yes, it's just a little loud if you would, because the
Absolutely.
microphone won't pick you up.
Yeah.
So George Kakidas, GS Design Group in Onset.
Thank you.
While they work on that, I just will give you a brief summary of the project. We are here requesting CPC funds of $400,000 to restore the old Onset Junction train station. We're working on the property that is about 2.25 acres in total, but our focus right now is to restore this building right here. We want to turn it into a community space. That is the focus and that is the goal. We have a full presentation to talk about what we want to do entirely on the property, but it all starts with this building right here, and that's how the plan came about. So we have a presentation from Angela first.
Hello. So I'll start by sharing some of the vision for the community element, and then we'll have George share the architectural plans and let you know how it's connected to the history, and then we will share some slides about the financials. Okay. So our goal again is to restore the old Onset Junction Depot Station. It was built in 1848. It ran as a train station for 100 years. Our goal is not to try to turn it into a train station. Our goal is to repurpose the building for a community space. And so one of the ways that we want to do that is we would love to use the inside to capture the element of history by turning it into a train car cafe. And that cafe will be available to the community after hours for a community space. So we're in an area where there are several affordable housing communities. There's a Head Start right down the street. There are different nonprofit organizations that actually don't have a space to meet. And they're always looking for spaces. And so we said, hey, if there's a room like this with a bunch of tables inside that can be rearranged for people to use as a community space, why not? We sit at the edge of wetlands. There's some outdoor space as well. So we thought it would be perfect to be able to repurpose the inside and use it as a cafe and meeting space. Now, one of the reasons why we want to use it as a cafe as well is because we have to maintain the cost of a historic building. And so I'll get to the structure of everything later, but the train station cafe will be able to support ongoing maintenance for the building for anything that we do to restore the outside of the building. The cafe is a separate project, is separately funded. The funding will only be used for the restoration of the external building and anything internally that can be salvaged. The other thing we would love to do is offer a community space for holiday access. So this is something that other communities do with their train station buildings, their historic train station buildings, is to allow kids to come and enjoy what the purpose and the thrill of train rides used to be. While there's no active train coming by anymore and the Polar Express already is launched at a different train station in the community, we thought it was pretty cool to do a virtual experience for children in a setting that is all about train themes. So there are places like the Polar Express station in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which is a historic building, or the Santa's elevator experience that you can go to Natick Mall and experience. Kids walk into a room, it's 4 walls, there's basically TVs on each wall. They're able to press a button and pretend like they're going up to Santa's elevator, or sit in some seats and pretend like they're on a Polar Express train, and the visuals give them the experience that they're going to meet Santa. And when they open up the door of the room, they're actually standing in front of Santa after going through this pretend experience. So we know that Wareham was once an area that was robust when it comes to traveling for different reasons, and people still travel here during the summer, but the residents need something during the winter as well to experience just something to really bring the community together. We don't want this just to be a summer community. People live here year-round, and we want to be able to give them a cool experience that becomes a new tradition in the community. So this is easy to dedicate a simple space to in the building for that purpose. And it's really about connection. We went through a pandemic, everybody was disconnected. And so we want to go back to what it means to be a community and have spaces that people can tap into and connect with each other. We know that historically in the Cape Cod community and surrounding communities like Wareham, people tend to turn to things like alcohol and things like that nature during the winter when it gets a little bit depressing. So we want to be able to provide experiences for the community to come out and celebrate with each other and really stay connected. And that's really the purpose of the cafe as well, if we think about what the cafe is all about. If you look at Wareham right now, one of the only places that you can go to get free Wi-Fi, right? Again, we mentioned that there's a Head Start down the street. There are several affordable housing communities. Some people, although they're in affordable housing, don't have access to Wi-Fi. Still, even so today, it seems something so simple and easily accessible, and it's not accessible to everybody. So being able to give free access to Wi-Fi in the East Wareham community is important. Right now, to get to coffee shops, it's a bit of a distance for the people in that area. And so that's an important goal of the cafe as well. So again, our goal with the restoration is to foster community access, create a new meeting space, and to have year-round community connection. And so I will let George share some of the architectural plans.
Great, thank you. And that's the page now. So, we did a little historic investigation of the depot station, again, built in 1848. And sorry, I didn't know that number. It was very confusing on the history on this
The
building.
town says it's 1900, but the
Yeah.
Massachusetts Historical Commission has further information that they provided us recently, and it was 1848.
But throughout its history, essentially, it was the Victorian age, dipped into Queen Anne and finished off in shingle style. And it started off as a wooden station, paneling. At one point, it had plaster. We found evidence of plaster on the side of the boards. So it's been through several restorations. What's important about these images is the fact that this was the trolley to Onset. This is how people arrived from, actually New York and Connecticut more than Boston, but they came down this path along the wetlands, came right into Onset, and that was how you arrived. And it came off the Cape Cod rails that are there now. So I just want to give you a little history there because it's important on our overall view of the site. So the existing site now, as you know, it's kind of all impervious, has been used for several things. This is, the train depot station's right in the middle of the top right, and there's a garage, gas station, and an outbuilding to the right. We needed to look at an overview of the entire project as a redevelopment, because you can't just throw money at one building without thinking of the overall concept. And what we came up with is an idea that we'd have some parking, because we know parking's at premium in Onset. And we were thinking of actually putting solar panels on top of this parking. This is the historic railroad trolley way that the trolley took. So we're kind of reinventing that would be the new approach to the depot and its restoration. This is another outbuilding that we have other thoughts on, but that was the concept on the overall redevelopment of the site.
What's the square footage of the main building?
It's approximately
Of the historic, the train
The
station?
train station's about
Around 2,000.
2,000
Okay,
square feet.
okay, and it's only one story?
It's 2 stories now, but we're considering just making it cathedral. We don't have any images of the inside,
Yeah.
so we have nothing to go by.
Sure, of course.
And
Okay.
who owns it right now? Who owns this property?
Right there, in the corner.
Mr. Derek Perry in the back over there.
Okay, so with the overall concept, I mean, and we've heard talk about a rotary going in there and everything. Everything we're doing is not gonna affect that or affect us, if anyone's thinking about that. So that's black and white. So that's the existing station has been changed so many times that it doesn't, you know, look like it did before in the past, all those postcards that I showed you. So we're kind of reaching out and trying to restore it and restore it to kind of the similarity of what it was. Specifically, you know, keeping those brackets that are iconic on what that station was. Oops, hold on. Okay, so that's the side facing the tracks. This was actually a ticket booth right here at one point. And we actually looked at Victorian coloring for just a concept of what it could look like. These are classic Victorian colors. We introduced paneling, which was there originally, and vertical siding. And this is another building on the side, which we think would be part of the whole genre and look of the entire redevelopment. And the existing garage that's there now would also take on some attribute of this kind of look. But we wanted you to understand it's not just the depot we're looking at. We have an overall concept of the whole thing.
Would the garage continue to operate in it?
Yeah, absolutely. But this solar panel array that I showed you before, this is gonna allow for people to come in, charge up, and then go get a coffee and ice cream while they're waiting to charge up. You know, this is the other outbuilding that's possibly in the future. We know parking's a premium in Onset. I mean, 4th of July, all those events, we have 53 spots roughly shown right now. And I'll just go back to that site plan because it kind of gives you the general idea.
Would there be a shuttle, like for a
Could
4th
be.
of July kind of thing?
Trolley.
Because right now, it's a
Trolley.
long walk. Tom.
Trolley.
Dangerous walk.
Yeah, so.
Well, there is a sidewalk.
Yes.
You haven't viewed the inside of this building?
Thank you.
We have,
You have.
yes,
Have you had a structural study done?
We have a structural engineer under contract. This has been a fast-paced project. We haven't had a chance to do a complete analysis.
But I assume you did a 21E study?
As I mentioned, we've been on a very fast track. We haven't done much more than what you see right now, and what we were able to put together, we think we did a
So,
great job.
would Mr. Perry continue to own this building? Or is
Yes,
this,
and I'll get into that in a
Yes, please
second.
do.
We're going to actually restructure the business to do the historic, we're gonna do the HR on the property so that that is completely separate from the rest of the business that's existing. So this project sits on 2 parcels of land that total about 2.2 acres. And so as you do know, Depot Auto Mechanic is next door, the gas station, and then as well as the train station and the accessory building. So we know that the total estimate funding is about 1.2 million for the entire project. Focused solely on the historic restoration of Depot, we're looking at $400,000, which is what we're requesting the CPA grant for. The majority of that funding will be going towards improving the foundation and restoring the external face, as well as the roof of the building, and getting it to match what it would have looked like back in 1848, as much as possible. We have at least 300 local community members who have signed in support of this project. That's still counting. The number is increasing every day. We have historical restoration experts and architects, as well as general contractors who have over 40 years of experience. We have the equipment we need. We're estimating that this project is going to take about 15 months to complete. And so here's a bit of the breakdown, and we'll go more into detail. Now, this original breakdown was based on conversations with the management team and some of our staff that was retained. The majority of it being, or 33% of it being, going towards the historic restoration. So again, bringing the foundation up to code, doing the external face of the building, and salvaging as much as possible so that we can repeat history or model ourselves after the historic footprint. We have a more detailed breakdown. We have an appendix that we can provide with quotes from our architect, our general contractor, and other parties involved in the project. Again, we're looking at 1.2 million for the total project. This is our timeline of how we'll spend the 400,000. We expect to start in August 2023 if we obtain the funding. By November, we'll begin to start the salvage efforts, do the foundation repair, and start to completely restore the face of the building. We're hoping by February 2024, we'll be able to complete that foundation work and the external structural elements when it comes to the restoration. And hopefully by May 2024, we'll be able to complete some of the indoor stuff. Anything that we can find that can be salvaged indoor, we do want to, try to keep that as close to historical context as possible. And so hopefully by August of 2024, we'll be able to complete everything else, allow the cafe to start doing their build out, again, a completely separate funded project. So that during the fall of 2024, we'll be prepared for the holiday access for the community. So here's our funding mix. We're looking at 33% from the CPA and the CPC for the historic restoration. The cafe is a separate project, but we're estimating 84,000 for that. Depot Auto has a reserve of 60,000 that we'll be investing into the project. We've been in contact with some private family foundations. They utilize the Fidelity Charitable Gift Fund in order to provide donations to projects of historical nature. So we're in the process of getting commitment letters from them for $300,000 in funding. And then we also have a relationship with All Trust Credit Union. And you'll see in the appendix that we provide you that we've already started the process for a construction loan with the credit union. And so this is just more detail about the breakdown of what I just showed you. And then here's what to expect with the management plan. So this is our team. We have Derek Perry, the owner, in the back there. Don Gomes, the project manager. I'm the operations manager. We have George here. He's the principal architect. We have JC Engineering on the site as our civil engineer and surveyor. We have our attorney and as well as a land consultant. And we've retained a general contractor who has also provided a quote that you'll see in the appendix, and our accounting firm. We know that ongoing maintenance for the property will be of concern. So we have a plan over the next 5 to 7 years of what that will cost. We're looking about roughly $2,000 to $3,000 a month to maintain the exterior of the building, to make sure that everything's in order. And again, we have a plan for how we'll be able to do that to commit funds to the maintenance budget. So here's a part of that plan. So right now, Depot Auto is being restructured so that it will become a holding company. So everything will be separate. Depot Auto, Onset Depot will become a subsidiary of Depot Auto, and that's where we'll place the historic restriction. That portion of the business will own that particular building and have the historic restriction on it, and the Train Cafe will rent from that entity. Those rents that the cafe provides to that entity will cover the maintenance budget to make sure that this project stays afloat and that we protect the historic work that was done on the property. We also have additional funding coming from other sources on the business and on the grounds. Again, it's a 2.2 acre property. The gas station, the mechanical bay, the construction group, and the lease space from the cafe. Not only will there be a cafe, but on the grounds there's also a place to support some small local business owners who offer food truck services. So that's also going to be an amazing thing to come and get ice cream and possibly visit a food truck and also get some healthy snacks at the cafe. But because all of those businesses are associated with the same holding company, we'll be able to make sure that this building is maintained and the investment is protected. This is just a little bit more information about Depot Auto if you want to read it later when we provide you the presentation. And here's our contact information. Thank you.
What is your personal experience doing this kind of project?
So I am a problem solver. I get hired to solve problems and to organize things, and I have been I started my own business at 15. I worked with the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship for many years since I was 15. And I get hired to help businesses succeed and see projects through like this. And so I am 36 now, and I've been doing it for a very long time to work with business owners to problem solve and see projects through. I worked in New York. I fundraised for a startup company where we actually developed property. It was called NICE. We actually developed several properties. One is near Temple University in Philadelphia. We did some development projects in New Jersey as well as New York. So I was an operations manager for that company, and I was also one of the founding members of that company. So I have experience when it comes to real estate and property development. We've hired experts when it comes to restoration because I have not done a historic restoration, but I've run businesses all my life.
What do you take for imagination? My gosh. Huh?
Business plan is very well laid out.
Yeah, business plan is, I think my
I
only concern.
applaud with the effort that's gone into this. I mean, it's terrific, and you just
Just comment
couldn't-
on a simple
Huh?
question. I live a stone's throw away from this. And
We all, some of us do.
Yeah.
Some of us pass by here every day.
I passed by here multiple times.
We
a
make
day.
it through
And
that.
I never knew what that
through
train
that
station
rotary,
looked like
not
in that
rotary
property
thing.
until a fine job the gentleman has done cleaning the whole place up.
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you, I think this is a very interesting concept. I'm not one to give public money to private things, but I think the cafe whole idea, I like, and I think the solar panels, I think is a great idea. So, I'm not a tough guy, I'm a tough guy to sell, and I think you've done a pretty good, really good job. And thank you.
As far as the cafe, is this more like a coffee shop, or do you envision doing dinners in the evening? Can you expand it just a bit on that? I'm looking at how many hours will you be serving the community at many levels?
I see it as, everybody's been to Cup 2, right? See, something like that, but a little bit more extensive. I wanna incorporate more smoothies, acai bowls, and just a small, simple, quality menu. I think of meetings like this, because the back of the building we want to reserve off as a conference space, so I think of food that can be catered, so I think of cafe food. So in the morning, you think of, quality breakfast sandwiches, but in the evening, I think of salads and wraps and things of that nature.
But do you envision a liquor license or any of
No.
that?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, I have 3 kids, which is, I wanna apologize for my phone going off, because one of them is 5 months, so to be here with my phone off is, I'm over here sweating. So, no, absolutely not. This space, I think of my 3 kids.
Okay.
When the whole, concept came about and I got together with the team, all I kept thinking about was my kids.
Because there is nothing, that's a wasteland
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And not that we don't want that, but
That's
it
part of our
is
concern.
very interesting to think about kids that get off the school bus. We've said this before, the only place they can go
It's a
get
liquor store.
is a liquor store.
We have a
Yikes.
concern about that, yeah.
I was born and raised in Onset, and we live right up the street on Sandwich Road. And even just going to see my mother, the not having to go on Cranberry Highway is like something that's constantly ringing in the back of my mind. To be able to get gas and coffee, even when I was growing up commuting to college and things like that, to not have to get on Cranberry Highway for just the convenience of all our yearly locals. And then the biggest part for me as well is I think about all the summer traffic coming in. And a lot of people want to escape what they're doing on Cranberry Highway. They're gonna be getting off to head down Onset Ave, especially with all the projects that are going on and how we're trying to redevelop Onset Ave. To think to get, go past the railroad station and see and create something that, yes, that will be almost an attraction and a necessity at the same time. The project in itself is, hopefully will be a staple. But we wanna focus on that building right there.
And do you think you'll do a little, I don't know if, I may have missed it, outdoor seating?
Yes.
Kind of thing?
Well, that, the whole idea between the solar panels and food trucks is that they can park underneath those and it's raining and people could still use the food trucks, as a concept. And then that outbuilding, there's
We have some
a,
outdoor seating designated
Yeah.
right here next
Okay,
to this
great.
outbuilding. And then So the wetlands are right here, so we obviously can't touch that, and we wanna keep as much greenery as possible, but there'll still be some greenery that we maintain, so that they'll be able to go and park and then enjoy the outdoors as well.
Okay, great.
And we have some great concepts and prospects for that exterior building right there that keeps it cohesive with the family theme, with the community theme.
It concerns me a little bit that the businesses right across the street from there that have, nothing has lasted there. You know, it seems like sort of one thing after another has failed. And I would love to see that whole little area. You bring in food trucks and that's a big, I love that idea. I think that's a really brilliant way to draw people in, but I would like to see even a more comprehensive idea of making good use of that space.
And we see it as an extension too, because a CPC grant was already given to Depot Crossing, you know, a while ago, and that's right down the street. So those, you know, the people who are benefiting from that grant are able to just walk right down the street and be able, you know, to experience this part of the community. Again, the only thing they can walk to right now is a liquor store, and that's shameful for them to get a bag of chips. The kids at the Head Start right across the street, another, you know, it's just, that's the only thing that's available, and we want to completely shift that image for the kids growing up in the community, but also to the low-income families in the community who are benefiting from the former CPC funds.
I mean, the solar panels act as kind of a buffer, natural buffer between the road and creates a screen, and so you have almost two separations between that gas station and the garage. It's the best we could, kind of concept we could come up with to do that, and the fact that it just mimics the trolley, the way it used to leave that station. I mean, it couldn't be any better to come from Onset or the other direction and head right towards the depot and see it center like they did in the old days.
And I wanna add that we are gonna do year-round ice cream. So you'll be able to go with your family at any time and get a sundae in the evening.
Well, how many tables are you envisioning about inside, not counting the little meeting area you might have in the back, you know, like 6 or 8 tables?
We actually have space in front of the depot that's not really articulated, that there could be some outdoor seating there as well. But on the interior,
We're still working on
On
that,
that,
yes, the interior design aspect and the build out,
But it's a lot of space, 2,000 square feet,
That's a lot of space.
you know, a room like this.
We wanna keep the cafe
Couple
short
hundred
and
square
sweet, you know, very compact. We really wanna have an open space. There will be a barrier wall for a room to be reserved for conferences and meetings, but everything will be an open concept. And then all the antiques that are in there, when you get inspired, so we wanna utilize that. There's old furnace and old piano and 8-tracks, and so it's gonna be like a space that when you walk in with the kids, you know, they're gonna have some fun.
Is there anything internal that is characteristic of a train station that you could reserve, a ticket booth,
no.
anything like that, nothing?
And I think that maybe we can repurpose some of the woods to the wood that's in there to recreate that ticket booth, but right now internally, no.
It's
For the previous owner.
It's been around for a long time. It's
Yeah.
been
1848.
The previous owner was not exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spent more time in that building than. I mean,
there's a lot of
20 years ago, I worked in that building.
Oh, really?
there's a lot of wall paneling. Put it that
Oh,
way.
Well, we want you to be able to say that in future years. I spent a lot of time in that building.
The project looks great. I mean,
Exciting.
I think the only concern I have is structurally, is it sound enough to handle it? Because I know that the outbuildings collapsed. That's why there's only that small section of building.
So the front right has issues, and there is a water situation has deteriorated the foundation throughout the years. Again, we haven't had our structural analysis done, but those brackets that support that roof, they're fine. I don't care what we do to it, those things, we're gonna reuse those things again. That thing is gonna look very similar to historically what we've seen and what we'd like to recreate and
We're gonna
restore.
capture the essence.
Yes.
Jerry?
Have you been before the planning board or the conservation commissions?
Nothing
Because typically, when we're asked to look at a project, all that has been done. In other words, you saw the two previous ones with Woodland Cove.
Yep.
project was there, and that's, all of that information we have to look at to base our decision on. But it's been approved,
Yeah,
land, so,
So essentially, the entire site is impervious almost, you know?
well, you mentioned Conservation Commission, though.
Well,
There's
we will
rules
be
about
going, we
doing
will be going
stuff
to
and-
Conservation Commission, but we are not changing any footprints. And it's only the pervious impervious situation, and we don't see us making it more detrimental, we will make it better.
Yeah.
So we've definitely added green space towards the front of the site. Again, this has been a very fast-track project, but my preliminary discussions with JC Engineering, we are gonna make it better. It'll be straightforward through conservation.
It just makes me reluctant, you have not gone through the committee, for the boards.
Sure.
To get approval, because typically someone comes and asks for money after they're approved.
So this is a restoration of a specific building. We're giving you the big concept
Well,
of the entire thing.
even solar panels, that's,
But we're not asking you money for that.
That's not
We
what we're
wanted
saying.
you to
Right,
understand.
but the project.
But yeah, we want you to understand the overall. In the beginning, obviously, we'll have a different parking situation to deal with when the depot opens. But this is a multi-stage project, and we just want to show that we're not going into this not thinking about the overall redevelopment of the site.
Right.
Because it would be silly to restore a beautiful building and no one would go to it. Because no one would see it. No one, you
The
know.
property is under new management, right? So, Mr. Perry actually just acquired the property, and when we recognized that there was a historic, building on the property, we wanted to make sure that we protect it before it becomes, too old or too dilapidated, and we can't do anything with it. And so that was a sense of urgency for us, is that we don't wanna try to drag this out for several years before the property, becomes condemned. We wanna be able to address it now. And then because we've already decided that we're going to enhance the existing business structures that's surrounding it, we're like, hey, we can't enhance the business surrounding it and just leave this to dilapidate. So we started becoming problem solvers and figuring out what we can do to protect this historic property. When you look at the Massachusetts Historical Commission, they provided us paperwork that not only is it a historic property because of the architecture, but also because of the events that took place there. This being one of the first railroads in the Cape Cod community, what it meant to the community. It's as a protected criteria under 2 elements with the commission. So we really want to protect this, but also, again, after COVID, we're people who like to communicate with the, and connect with the community, and that was one thing that was really hard on us, running businesses and constantly connecting with people, being away from people, so we want to bring that back, and so we saw an opportunity to go.
Well, you have an excellent business plan, but as Jerry has pointed out, you have a plan, but you don't have the permits to actually attach the structure.
Can I speak?
And that's, we usually see you after that, when you have all that confirmation that you're
So
capable of
it's
actually
already
doing
in the
something
works.
with the building.
Yeah, it's already in the works. Because we're on the state register, you have to be on one of 3 registers to be able to have the historic restriction. We're on the state register as a historical property, and she's been in contact to be able to expedite the historic restriction.
Well, it's not the historical restriction, you're misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It's for the
Downstairs in
zoning
this basement, there's a
analysis.
permit, there's an inspection services, and
Okay.
you have to go through that process to verify that you have a structure you can actually work on.
And could a grant be made contingent upon getting those permits? In other words, they can't get the money until they get the permits.
And I can assure you that we're taking all the right steps, and that's what we want. That we want to see this project through and executed appropriately. And so yes, unfortunately, the CPC came up so fast that it seems like we got ahead of ourselves, but in reality, we are hiring all the right people, and we want to satisfy the town that we are going to take the right steps to do the right thing. Again, the plan came about, it's all about this building and creating the community space. Now, when he bought the property, we could have, there's lots of things that we could have done with it. Even as a construction company could have utilized the space and been profitable, but we decided to go in another direction because we're thinking about the community. So I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right, but we are going to take a few steps back and make sure that all those things are in line with the planning board and the town hall.
May I suggest, you might wanna talk to your attorney, see if he can do a zoning analysis. If it's as of right, it's very different if you need a special permit or anything like that.
Yep.
I might recommend
We have
maybe
talked to our attorney,
you
we
do
actually,
that.
just submitted paperwork to the town about the zoning, it's a commercial zone.
Right,
Yeah,
but,
you're a few steps ahead of yourselves,
yeah,
is where you are.
yeah, but I think as an architect who's worked on projects here, it's really, so he should be able to tell you in short order what the process is to get to that building permit. Is it as of right, you can walk in the door with plans, or do you have to go through the planning board special permit, which will take some time, but it might give you some comfort, might give us some
It will,
comfort
no,
as
it's
well.
gonna be a special permit, no matter what.
Okay.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
granted, but
that's
I
what I
mean,
assumed,
this
but I
is,
let you say that.
yeah, this is strictly a restoration project, so it's by right. We're not changing the footprint.
Right.
We're giving you, again, we bombarded you with the overall concept, but it's really about a single building, a restoration to historically bring it back to what it used to be.
And we don't wanna
We
let
understand
time
that.
pass, too
We
much time
understand.
pass.
What we are looking for
You gotta
is
drag the
a
town
few steps
along.
back before you got to us.
Wait, can I?
Yes, Jody?
Can I ask Mr. Hurd a question, if he cares to answer? If you don't, that's fine. With the CPC though, when you met with these folks, you probably had some of the same concerns. You don't hand out any money until something's concrete.
Until something gets accomplished,
Right, just putting that out there.
yes.
And
So
we have
they're not gonna get this money up front. They have to go through the building process and the permit process to get approval to do the work.
Dollar one.
And if they don't ever do it, the money just reverts back to
Yes.
CPC.
And
That
we
is
have some
correct.
time, we've been able to get this up off the ground and build a robust team in no time, right?
In weeks.
And so these votes and stuff and the funding won't even be released until the summertime, so we know we can get it done.
I mean, the money's just gonna be allocated, so they can't spend it.
Right.
And the first thing that everybody's asking for is the survey, and JC Engineering is a little bit behind, they are backed up. I've been driving them crazy every day, so, just so that you know.
We've done this a few times. too.
The next project
understand
is Tremont
the
Nail,
issue
guys.
with
Yeah.
staffing,
Okay.
yes.
But that is what everybody's waiting for, and,
Okay, that's your first step.
yes,
yeah.
yes, and
And
so.
as built, yeah,
Funds
or
aren't available
existing,
until after the
yeah,
work's done.
okay.
You have a very good team there putting this together, sir.
I think.
Good presentation, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just
Thank-
I
Yes,
drive by
Tom.
this every day. You've done amazing. And I'd love to see this all happen. One thing, cause I drive by this every day, is the traffic. That would concern me, getting through planning boards and everything.
Oh, no.
Cause someone taking a left out of there is really, that's an incredibly difficult. You don't think so?
No.
Alright.
I think if anything, it's gonna kinda help.
I spent
I think
6
a lot
days
of people
doing
get confused. Now, us locals, we know who has the right of way. It's
right.
everybody else who doesn't get that
I
concept.
spent 6 days a week there. I'm on the defensive the minute I go over the track.
I
Yeah.
I spent 6 days a week there. We had more problem coming out of that intersection right there than ever out of the parking lot.
Scary.
People need to use their turn signals so everyone knows what they're
I
going
think-
to.
And we only had,
I
I
think
mean,
they're-
cause we towed from that
This
intersection.
is where they're gonna put one of the rotaries.
Yeah,
No,
someone
they can't put a
mentioned that
rotary
the-
because of the railroad tracks in, that's been
That's the
the,
challenge.
that's been the
Yeah.
challenge.
The rotary would go right here.
Would be that
That's
right
the
there.
proposal, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, not near the railroad.
Who knows when that will happen.
Yeah.
probably not my lifetime.
No, I know. It's
Well,
that,
wasn't that part of the bike?
Well, the road commissioners are
It's
talking
the
about
road
it.
itself is part of it.
I'm talking about it, cause it is
It's at the
that
bike lane's
second
already there.
stop.
It's still on the table, but
Oh my
it's
god.
underneath the table,
A very large table.
big table.
Yeah, but I spent 6 days a week there. We never had a
Yeah,
problem
bike path, they-
out of that parking lot. No.
Bike path, they
If you're
put it
taking
back.
the left.
Yeah. And we flew in and out of
Thank
the tow
you.
truck.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Yeah.
It's late
I
hours.
never had a problem.
You gotta be so defensive.
That's
It's that
You don't
intersection,
assume.
intersection is the problem.
If you have the right of way, you don't assume everyone knows you have the right of way.
It's like coming off Main Street onto Route 6, you gotta look through the blink around.
That's right. And people are mostly good about that.
Can we get a copy of
Just the
this,
neighbors.
of those
Yeah, they're gonna
presentations as
send
well?
Yeah, they'll send it to us.
You sure?
Yes.
I can reach out if she doesn't send it.
Give them an opportunity to go. They had, listen, they had an outstanding presentation.
Yeah?
So
I think the
Email here, this tax burden. Two-thirds are gonna go down.
Okay.
And they know how to sell.
I'm not an easy person to sell.
Doesn't that make sense? Taxes are
No, I know.
Okay,
Yeah, no, they did.
Connecticut, New Jersey,
The,
Illinois, New York, Massachusetts.
Crazy idea.
next item on our agenda is the review and
Is that of
discussion of the budget
Yeah.
that we had reviewed 2 weeks ago. Now, the cherry sheet has come out. This is the governor's version of his cherry sheet and with their budget. We end up getting 2 million more than we anticipated. And 1.5 is gonna go to the schools because it's chapter 70 funds to begin with. And about 500,000 roughly on both sides will remain on the municipal side. And that has already been discussed with Derek and Matt, and they worked that out for them. So as a result, several of our budgets within the municipal side are obviously going to change. He's been able to add to some. We now have, I think, over 100,000 in our reserve account. And our business expense account has gone up to 10,000. When you consider what it's costing us to print our reports, it's adequate, I think, that's actually adequate. But as a result, though, there's other issues that's changing, and I haven't seen them yet. And when Derek has them, it'll hopefully be sometime this week, he's working on them, and he'll finalize them again, and we'll go through them. I have a tentative schedule I made up for the rest of the,
So I'm very
Yes.
sorry, my first time touring this. The cherry sheet, it says estimates, but is this, we can assume that this in fact is what we'll get?
yes.
Okay, it's a done deal, good.
Now, it can change, yes, because the legislature hasn't, the House of Representatives hasn't decided on theirs, and the Senate hasn't decided on theirs, but they usually parallel pretty much, because these are community funds. We're not, the governor's budget, we're unconcerned with what he wants to sell, or she, excuse me, wants to give, Department Desi or any other of his secretaries. But this goes to the cities and towns, so they adhere to it.
Good, okay.
But with their, let's see, they had $1.3 billion left over from last year. They're projecting another $1 billion plus in revenues, year to date for this year. And I'm sure we might get $1 or $2 out of the whole thing. I mean,
Couldn't we use some of that money?
oh my God. But, just wanted to update you as far as our budget's concerned. We're gonna go over the line items again, when we have the information. Excuse me. And let's see, there's a chapter 70 workshop that is being presented on 15th? No, excuse me, March 20th. March 20th. 9 AM to 1 AM.
1 PM.
PM, excuse me, thank you. So review chapter 70, net school spending based on the preliminary FY24 budget numbers, including the impact of the Student Opportunities Act.
Is that in person?
Zoom.
The Zoom, and the cost will be covered by the town administrator's office.
So we'll get a link to that.
Yes,
March 20th, Barney, I'm sorry.
March 20th. 9 AM to 1 PM. There's also a workshop on Thursday, March 16th at 5 PM here in the Town Hall Auditorium. Special joint workshop meeting of the Wareham Select Board and Police Building Study Committee and the Public Safety Complex Study Committee.
That's the 16th, right?
Yes,
Say that again?
March 16th, 5 PM here in the auditorium. And, okay, as far as the future schedule is concerned, today's the 1st, so on the 8th, we'll do the housekeeping articles, which was 1 through 5, 7, 8, and 10. 16, 17, and 22, I say they're basically the housekeeping articles.
What were the last three?
16, 17, and 22.
Get that on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't have the new numbering.
Are we gonna get, the whole thing sometime soon?
And yes, it'll be delivered to me tomorrow,
Great.
and I will scan it, and send it out to everyone. What, Judy?
It was sent to you today by email, the whole warrant?
I didn't get it yet, or perhaps I didn't, 2 hours before I'm leaving the house for this meeting, I don't necessarily double check.
His secretary took the day off.
I'll double check, but I believe it was sent with the grid, with the votes, because we created the vote grid and we
Yes.
voted on everything, yeah, as you
Yes.
saw, yeah.
But I wanted the in-person delivery. That's tomorrow.
Got it.
On the 15th, we'll do capital planning, and perhaps Upper Cape will be available at the time. And on the 22nd, we'll do the school articles and their budget.
Can't be here the 22nd.
Oh, no.
You say 17th? Reviewing the school budget. That's almost too exciting too.
If I can get the ZBA to put me on early.
Well, we'll do the articles first. No, excuse me. Upper Cape is tentative, because
That's the
Dominic was telling me about it.
15th.
We have to wait for him to do his presentation to his own committee.
Right, I'm
First.
talking the 22nd meeting.
Yes, I said maybe I could swap, if that be the case. Just for Jody? No.
No,
He wants to be here for the school.
I know
I
he
won't
does,
be
I
here for
know
the
he
schools,
does.
but I gotta be there for the ZBA meeting.
I can't help it, he travels so much, and he expects us to be
Work around his
inconvenienced by it.
schedule.
No,
Okay,
I think
the,
swap the 15th and 22nd would be a good idea.
It's tentative.
Yeah.
Everything is tentative.
Yeah.
The, I had asked Norma to look for a cover, and she found a very nice one too. It really speaks of, with rainbow, a couple rainbows and all, what Debbie said.
You may remember last summer when there was a double rainbow one evening. We were actually out of town, but our house sitter, who is also a friend, took a really lovely picture out over Sunset Cove of our sailboat with the rainbow. And I'm sure she wouldn't mind us with attribution, including that on the cover. But I think we should also, if anybody else has ideas and you wanna pass them around, that would be great.
Can we
The
get a
train
group
station.
shot of us and put us in the
And
sailboat?
superimpose us.
Absolutely.
That sailboat only holds 6 people, so I don't
Yes, I was gonna say.
it wouldn't look right.
6 small people.
6,
You have a schooner to get,
it's a 14-foot catboat.
get us all on it?
Get us all on our other boat.
And I want to remind you all that I have asked that for the, instead of having the chairman's message, that each of you have a paragraph under your name for the opening of our report.
Do we want to have a deadline for submitting that?
What are you
That's not the
looking
last
for
minute?
Has to be the 5th of April.
Just for context, Bernie, what are you looking for us to write?
Something nice.
That's very vague.
What does Wareham, what does Wareham mean to me?
Yeah, you're addressing the town meeting,
Mhm.
The citizens.
from your opinion as to what's transpired, what we need to do, or,
Do try to keep it
because
upbeat.
if you were chairman, you would have to write a message.
You
And
can
so
go-
you're gonna fill in for me.
Look at
I didn't
this.
apply for that job.
You can go back and look at old town reports and see what has been
Yeah.
the chair
It's
message
like the last
before.
line, Tom, in any other services that can be determined later.
You've been voluntold.
Okay.
Now, is there anything else that anyone needs or wants? Because obviously, there's, none of the department heads will refuse us anything. It's a good,
None?
it's that time of year. Everything going well?
I'll let mine go till I see the schools. No, I don't know how many saw the $80,000 transfer for energy again. You know, that's about $200,000 they had somewhere in their budget that they could come up to pay for the lights in the new school.
Well, with this 1.5 mil they just got,
Should be able to cover a lot.
there could be lighting. They still got the ESSER funds over there.
I understand all that, and I did run into the town administrator in the parking lot, and I told him I still want the budget cut, even though he's gonna give him the 4.7. I said, there's just too many extra positions in that budget, and I'll go to my grave saying that. I can defend the town side budget, but the school budget, nope.
And I think we're rather unanimous in that. However, with the governor giving them that extra money and all, we've lost any leverage we perhaps had to bargain
Well,
for staffing issues and all.
not gonna be able to cover it next year.
They still got 1.8 next year that they gotta take out of the budget.
Is it for programmatic versus administrative staff?
Yeah,
Right.
well, I told Bernie I could cut $500,000 out of drinking half a bottle of water with some of the positions they have in there.
I was looking
What do
through,
they do?
I was looking through their meeting agendas for the past several months. And I was very disappointed with the extra monies that they didn't have appropriations in there or talk about new programs to make up for the shortfall, the significant shortfall we have in the math areas. And they have a particular chart, just reflects what our own students here in town are shortfall. And math is very seriously behind, unfortunately, with the last 2 years of COVID.
I can give you a story on that one.
And it's rather disappointing to find that the committee itself didn't address those issues.
See, the stuff I'm not looking at is nothing to do with direct student services,
Correct,
whether it be
yeah.
social or teachers. It's all administrative. And I rest my case.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
You're stealing Jody's thunder. He's finally back. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. You're adjourned.
So we're back.